I just finished working on this 18-minute documentary project on my cold dipping process, and it's been a huge, juicy film that has a lot of different layers to it. So without further ado, I want to hop into the timeline and share with you guys how I pieced this together, scene by scene, moment by moment, montage by montage, while skimming through this. So the first thing that you'll recognize is how I've utilized every single one of these video tracks. The first layer is all of my talk to camera segments, which was how I started this video. In fact, you can even see the tab is called talk to camera. I pieced together a talk to camera segment like this one, and it was just sort of like a vlog. And then from there, was the base layer. And then I started adding so much footage to it that this was the original just talk to camera thing. And then B-roll came in, and then montages, music, and then that became my primary timeline. Also, this is a hashtag no filter. I haven't changed this timeline whatsoever because I really wanted to give you like an authentic look of what my messy brain looks like on a screen. Here's the opening. We've got a CinemaScope 2:3:5 aspect ratio over the top, and we've got video blocks of video footage. And what I wanted to do was hook the audience with a message at the beginning. So that is, I hate the winner. I hate the winner. And I use these clips paired with these sound effects. I think shots work really well. Like if we play back on them, I wonder if I can. Those shots hit really well with the sound effects kind of smashing into them, right? If it was just the shots with the music alone, I feel like it wouldn't hit as hard. Doesn't hit as hard as it with the sound effects. So I really made sure that I had the sound effects as well as like quirky music. I found all my music off this website called Upbeat, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but Upbeat was kind enough to give me a subscription to their platform to try out their premium tracks for their YouTuber-driven music platform, and I absolutely loved applying it. It helped me tell the story in the final stages, the most difficult stages of putting this video together, and it also helped just dictate how to explain certain things, like the quirkiness of this opening. So then we go into the sequence, this nested sequence with the title on the top. I nested this so that I could actually like move the text around on the screen. So to do like titles that kind of like pop up one by one. So if you watch it, the text kind of pops up one by one. I've always found really difficult. I'm so weirded out that Premiere doesn't have a like title player. I have to manually put each one of those pieces of text in. There's not just some software that does it. But if you manually put it in, sometimes it can become uncentered. So I nest the sequence. So see how I put it in? It's kind of like off to the left. I nest the sequence of text and then actually go into the nested sequence and adjust the title here. That way the text can pop up one by one and I'm not changing each individual text track on its own. I'm moving the whole thing. And I really think a strong edit is something that has a lot of layers to it. As an editor, we're sort of supposed to be hiding in plain sight. And so a good technique is sometimes to, rather than be invisible within the process, try to see how much you can be shown through your editing style. If you think about a good article, if you're reading an article online, whether it's from the news, a favorite vlogger, blogger, or maybe it's just a newspaper, when they source out the material that they're using, compiling a bunch of information together, it feels a lot more valuable rather than just a one person's perspective of this. And I really wanted to start the video with layers of information to know that I just didn't pull this stuff out of my ass. So I've got clips from Yes Theory. I've got interview clips of Wim Hof on TV, people talking about him, the news, and that sort of solidifies, I think, a good intro to this video. So a big thing that I think as filmmakers that we try to do is we don't want to try and like get rid of all of our good stuff at the beginning because we're afraid that once it's gone, we don't have it anymore. And as an editor, that's definitely a thing where I try to like hold on to like all of my goodies. I'm like, no, I gotta like slowly sprinkle it through the edit. I can't use it all up at once. But something really fun to do is go, okay, let's go crazy for the opening. Let's really use everything we have and put it at the beginning. So that's what I did. I took my favorite parts from my dip and put it at the beginning of this to hook the audience because there's nothing more important to a video than the opening. And so if you're selfish about keeping it for the end, try and reframe your mind. So what I did was I placed in a lot of my favorite stuff. And then I started going through, and I think being a good editor is also being a good recycler. So what I ended up doing was like all of this stuff is just recycled content throughout the video, but I just found different segments. So quick tip, if you're trying to find a clip in a messy search folder, we'll just right click, reveal, and project. You click onto that bad boy and boom, you found it. And so I have this part of me dipping into the hole, but there's so much footage here. So I just found little snippets from other clips that I wanted to include into the entire video and place that at the beginning to really show the audience what they're in store for, as well as giving them a key thing within the beginning of a video, which is known as a promise. I made a promise to the content that people would be seeing in this, and that's how we established that within the opening. As we kind of skim through the timeline, again, I use my base layer as this talk to camera sequence. Now, at the beginning, there's also these audio tracks that I have in here, which audio is just as important as video, but you don't apply audio until you've sort of figured out your visual language, except for narration. So I have my narration piece throughout the beginning, which I actually created midway through the video. So I'd done my talk to camera, realized that these segments of me talking to camera didn't do enough justice, and then I recorded audio. So I wrote a script down, which I'll show you guys. I then wrote a script and I started piecing this together. So there's so many little layers to it that I wrote out. And then I just had a running document on my computer to where I would have these little voiceovers that I would record and then place in. So if you look at this, there's like this cool slow-mo shot of me, super cinematic, but then it's like cut with like another shot that's in regular speed. And then that's spliced with stuff on a cell phone that my mom shot. And then it's like GoPro. And I wanted to weave the audience through all this different footage to show them that the gritty stuff, the real cinematic stuff, and to weave that in. Now that's diversity is so important to a dynamic edit. And as well as like even within this first minute, I show like a timer, like a video layer effect. And I think within that promise, as far as a story structure goes, should sort of come the promise of the style, what they're about to go into. Because the big thing is you don't want to be watching a video and then midway through the style totally changes. So if you're able to establish your style, your creativity, your flavor within the very beginning, everything else that sort of plays out throughout it, the audience is expecting and they're looking forward to it. They're looking forward to that style. And then I have this really fun drone shot that we zoom out of and ask the question, which is the most important part of any sort of intro for a video, is to give the audience a question. That question is part of the promise, and the promise is the answer that we're going to get to. All of that footage, all of this stuff within that narration, and then leading up to that big question, the why, is to show that within the video, we're going to get to the answer to this. We're going to go through all these clips, and we're going to get to the answer of what our why is. And then what I wanted to do as the video sort of progressed is go to a quote. I think quotes are incredibly powerful tools. We see them within movie trailers, obviously documentaries, films, and they're things that just give us a bit of an external perspective. And I wanted it to be a quote from the legendary Wim Hof, and for him to talk about what cold exposure is. Then I go into a secondary montage. This one is, again, to give a different voice to it. So throughout the sequence, I have Tony Robbins talking about cold exposure and what he thinks of it. And I thought it'd be really good to have, again, that additional perspective. I tried doing like a remix type thing where for fun, I'm like, well, what happens? I think I was like listening to like a lot of rap at the time of editing this. And that's a big thing. Be influenced by whatever is in your circle. Don't just like, sometimes I like to have like an influence chart where I'll look at like, I'll be watching videos on like documentaries about cold exposure. I want to use that for this video and I want to piece all this stuff together. But what that can do is almost make you into an influenced paralysis where you start looking at the same stuff over and over again and then you're comparing yourself to that content, which is super unhealthy. I started watching Matt Diavelli videos while doing this, and it was a bad idea because I started comparing my cold exposure video to his cold exposure video. So instead, I changed up my influence cocktail and I started like listening to Eminem again. I know it sounds weird, but listening to rap and then listening to different styles of art, watching weird videos on Vimeo, weird commercials. I started like going like, well, why don't I remix the opening, having like this cool hip hop beat at the beginning. So that's how I created this.
Instantly, every muscle, every nerve in your body is flushed with blood.
To begin with on this edit, like this is just the assembly. This is how it was all put together. But there are so many video files from this journey, which I labeled in this folder called vlogs, where essentially they were just parts of my experience, whether it was talk to camera, cool slow motions of me doing a dip, and this was a good way so that I had the documentation of my entire journey put onto a timeline, which then I could start stealing from and putting into my main segment, which was talk to camera. And so This had Tony Robbins. This had like some weird Russian guy dipping into the snow. Some videos of my sister cracking the ice for me. And eventually, this was my reference point for all the B-roll and for my main timeline. So we had the intro, we had the promise, then we had a montage that led us to the theme. Those were the 3 sections that the video starts with. And then I wanted to dig into the first dip, which is sort of what we want to see, which is the experience. But as I went through, I came across one major problem, which was I didn't have the first dip documented. So I was like, oh, either I can recreate this, fake this, or I'll make a cool montage about it. And so instead, I kind of went to the drawing board. I watched this documentary by Becky and Chris on their YouTube channel, and they had this really cool montage in it, and I was super inspired by how they pieced that together to give background information. So I spliced in this like micro montage, this fast, quick thing that ended up explaining the process really well in a much more condensed way than what having a full documentation of it was. So I had fun with it, created this montage, which if you guys want to learn how I did a montage like this, write that in the comment section below. I breathed fast, felt uncomfortable. Quickly, how I edited it together was I added some video effects into the video folders. I made it black and white by using Lumetri Color and Alan Palander. And then I put in this multiplied sort of video layer over top, which is just like this bad film frame effect. And then I actually have created this effect called bad video, which then I layered over top of this video effect, which makes the video like whatever that means. So that's how I ended up splicing that in, and then just adding some like film flickers throughout it. And I think the thing that really ties it together are those sharp sound effects that hook us out. But this was just a creative solution to a problem that I had while editing, which was I just didn't have the sequence that I wanted. So then I also just shot additional footage to layer in, which of like me like being freezing cold. I shot this by a window, blew out the background, and just pretended I was cold. I wasn't actually in the water. As we sort of continue, my talk to cameras didn't give me everything that I wanted. So I had to like go out and just shoot some stuff on my cell phone. If I was on a walk and I just had like this idea of, oh, this would work really well, I would just shoot the talk to camera on my phone, because content is better than nothing. And I know we strive to have like the best background, the best studio setup. But at the end of the day, content is content. It doesn't matter if it's shot on your cell phone or shot on a Red Epic. The best content is that genuine stuff. And so as much as I tried to like rehearse and talk to camera and do these like really well spoken things, sometimes the best stuff that came out of this entire video were the little random vlogs that I shot on my phone or just sort of on the way. When you're doing a project of scale, scope, or just of any sort of edit, you're gonna have a lot of B-roll, and we get into sort of B-roll paralysis where there's all this cool footage of us like doing stuff. Like I have this shot of me taking this robe off of me and this shot from one of my first dips, and how do those piece together in an edit? Like where do you put them? The big thing is like really don't put as much pressure on B-roll as you should. Sometimes just piecing it in and putting it in and be like, yeah, it works here is good enough. You don't have to overthink how many layers you got to put in and what all this stuff means. Sometimes it's just like, yeah, you know what? I haven't used this clip for a while. I'll throw it in. And that's what sort of this was. I knew that I hadn't used these shots in the timeline yet. I threw them in and they just kind of stayed there. And sometimes it's just like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't. And eventually, after you've just put in that first pass of putting random clips in, you'll eventually start to figure out what works and what needs to be moved. Then after this sort of talk to camera segment that I have, I go into another montage. This is sort of talking about the benefits of cold exposure. I had these clips from Yes Theory video that I used in the film, and I spliced it in just to sort of show that, again, that video diversity, other people's clips. And if we go into this sequence here, it's this little montage where there's the Yes Theory clip. I have this video effect layer over the top, which is this like bad video frame. And essentially what this does is just sort of makes it pop out of that like traditional doc style and gives it a little bit more of that raw look. I then apply these video titles throughout it, which are backed with this video effect, and then these titles I got from Maddie Hapoya. Essentially what I like to do with the video edit is like I just like to try stuff out. I like to play with it. So I put in a video effect, and I'm like, okay, what if I had this like cool title that I got? And I just start splicing. Sometimes the answer to editing is not doing what's traditional, what you've learned from a tutorial. It's piecing together a bunch of weird stuff and creating something that fits. I couldn't figure out the best way to do this explainer other than just to do a narration. So I started with this narration that I had recorded on my Rode video mic on top of my camera. Relationship with the cold, which has led me here, my 69th consecutive cold day. And then I used that audio and then started going, oh, what's some footage that could go with this? Oh, there's no footage. So I'll just do cool video backgrounds with text in front of it. And the most important thing that I'll say is that to start and then just get going and to have little cues to motivate you. If it's a problem, how do you solve that problem? That's how you create something like a cool montage. If you get stopped at a certain point, start looking at other sources for inspiration, but don't look at the direct sources for inspiration. So if you're doing a documentary about your cell phone detox, don't go watch a Matt Diavelli video. Go listen to Eminem or something. Trust me, external influences from other things that aren't directly related to what you're doing is way more important and beneficial than looking at those who are the leaders of that route. Another big thing that I want to really champion within this video is music. I layered this entire video. One of my biggest struggles with this video was I got hammered with not knowing where to go after I was about 60% of the way done. A lot of the edits and videos just sort of felt a little rusty and choppy, and I really had a huge insecurity of piecing the rest of it together. What ended up happening was I got turned on to Upbeat, which is the platform that really helped me get this video completely done. Freedom to create, no copyright claims from your favorite beat makers. They've organized a lot of their tracks through beats, background vibes, mood, and a really easy to organized way of going through it. Now, the nice thing about Upbeat is that they provide the first 10 tracks off of their website completely for free for YouTube creators. So if you guys are wanting to give it a shot, you can give it a gander. What I really liked about it was the beats exactly that I needed, whether it was this inspirational track to this upbeat, that's no pun intended, but like fast rock rhythm, as well as some stuff that's like calm learning. And this music helped dictate the storytelling structure that I wanted to go for. It also solidified the direction that I wanted to go into. And hopefully you gained as much out of it as I did making it and learning how to edit this stuff. If you are wanting to check out the actual video of cold exposure, cold dipping, all that fun stuff, give it a gander. There'll be a link to it in the description below. It is one of the most transformative journeys that I've ever had in my entire life, and I would love for you to check it out because you've already watched half of it, half-baked. But that's it. If you want to watch also more of these editing breakdown type videos, these long-winded like guiding tracks, let me know in the comment section below, and I'd love to make more for you. Anyways, guys, have a great day, and I love you.